Hello again there, everybody. It is the Record Ranter, and we are back with another review. And if you were anywhere in the 2010s, there was a certain song that you could not escape. It was everywhere. It was all over TV, not even just one song, multiple songs by this group we're going to talk about today. And this group was so talented back in the 2010s that they were considered the modern day queen of the 2010s. And we're going to be talking about their second and final album that they released in the 2010s called Some Nights. And let's just take a moment to admire this album cover. It seems that the album cover has references to 70s, record covers, because 70s records and stuff like that had like an image in the center with the title of the record on top of, a very light colored background. And that's what's cool about this. This is a packed 10-track album full of sing-along bangers, full of catchy riffs, full of self-depreciating, emotionally charged lyrics. Makes it kind of feel like it's an entire crowd singing choruses throughout the album. It's literally kind of like if you were in a bar, like POV, you are in a bar with a ton of other bar patrons and you guys are all singing bar songs together. That's what this album would be. Nate Ruess, the lead singer of Fun, he has a way with his lyrics to where he has such a very peculiar style of songwriting, and that peculiar style of songwriting really shines through here. And what I really like about this album, especially what Fun does something different that most pop groups of the time just couldn't do. They made their songs feel grand. They implemented rock in there. They implemented fucking, orchestral strings. Like, they literally kind of took the Queen formula, modernized it, made it sound a little bit more poppy, and that's what you get with Fun. But for every great thing this album has, there's also some flaws as well. One thing I just don't understand is, the first 4 tracks, great, no skips. Then you get the track 5, it gets better. And then you get the track 5, and it's like this very electronic-y, very little just out of nowhere chaotic mess. And you're just like, wait a second, how did we get from this very grand, cinematic, style in the first 4 tracks to jumping into this chaotic mess in track 5? It makes no sense. What makes no sense to me is Why Am I the One would fit perfectly after the 4th track, Carry On. And instead of putting Why Am I the One after Carry On, they put, It Gets Better right after Carry On. And the second half of the album falls so short. In track 5, It Gets Better, sounds like it should be on the second half of the album. It shouldn't just, out of nowhere interrupt the first half. And then you have Why Am I the One, which should have been on the first half. And then you have the rest of the songs which sound out of place. In fact, a lot of the songs on the second half of the album, I feel like it should have just been a separate album in and of itself. Because in the first half of this album, you get this very grand, pop, cinematic, barsy, sing-along feel, orchestra, rock guitars and stuff like that. And it's so great. And then once you get to the second half, sounds like a completely different album. It sounds like this very electronic-y, it sounds like it should have been its own stand-alone album. All Alright kind of feels like, you just went through the rain type of song. Everything's gonna be all alright. And you want to dance to All Alright, you want to put your hands in the air. And it has very gospel elements. There's some gospel elements in All Alright. A little bit of hip-hop vibes in there, if you know what I mean. And then you get the bonus track, and I cannot believe this is a bonus track. This should have been on side A. Such a great song. It's a very short song, but I'm sitting here, I'm like, this would have gone perfectly on side A, or the first half. I'm like, I don't understand how it's a bonus track. You have all these electronic-y, very weird, out-of-place songs on the second half, but then you follow it up with a bonus track that actually sounds very good that should have been included on the first half. I don't get it. Another flaw of this album is the use of auto-tune. Nate Ruess is such a great singer, but there's in Some Nights, right? Second song, Some Nights, there's an auto-tune section where at the time in the 2010s, if you were there, it sounded good, it sounded right. But now when you look back on it 10 plus years later, it pretty much sounds out of place, it sounds dated. And it makes no sense why he would have thought that would have been a good idea. But the way that it's presented on this album, there's times where it just feels so out of place and it sounds so dated. So I think I'm gonna have to give this album a light 4 out of 5. And the thing was, there's so many great songs on here. These guys were heralded as the next queen of the 2010s, but some songs are just like placed in an order on the album where they shouldn't be placed. And there's songs on this album that just do not fit. And, there's times where the auto-tune just sounds so bad. What are your thoughts on this album? Do you guys agree with my take here on this light 4 out of 5? What are your thoughts? Until next time, peace.